Nation of Fit in 10, welcome to day 13 of the challenge. And yesterday I talked about a little bit about net calories. And, I just wanted to reiterate that there's many ways that we can classify net calories, although I really don't like this. I really just like to look at it as there's a total expenditure for the day, and there is a total input for the day. And of course, the difference is either going to be, essentially one of three things. It's going to be a deficit, or it's going to be on par, or it's going to be above, right? There's going to be a net accumulation of calories. And of course, this over time will, to some degree, depending on what you're doing, of course, and depending on how much extra you're having, you're going to put on body fat, essentially, okay? So we really want to watch this net accumulation. Of course, there's a bunch of nuances when it comes to the different types of energy sources we can have. We're talking about that right now, actually. We'll talk a little bit more on fat, carbohydrates, and proteins, etc. Of course, there's a difference in thermic effect, right? There's a difference in terms of energy cost for digestion of these foods. And when I give these percentages, they're really just, they're averages. It can be a little bit different from person to person and food to food. But on average, that's what we're looking at. The question yesterday about net calories, though, was just, again, to reiterate, I believe the exercise amount, or the estimated amount of exercise calories that MyFitnessPal estimates that you've done. And then you've got your estimated food intake for the day, and what it's doing is, and there's a third piece to this. There's what MyFitnessPal wants you to have. And so what it's doing is basically saying the more exercise you do, basically the more you can eat to meet the calorie goals in MyFitnessPal. And so essentially what it's saying is it's taking your I know I explained this yesterday, but I just want to say it one more time. It's taking your accumulated calories for the day, it's subtracting the estimated calories you've burnt doing exercise. I'm not sure how it classifies exercise, maybe at a certain heart rate, I'm not sure. And it says that this is really the amount of calories that are going to count for today. But as I mentioned yesterday, this is a bit arbitrary because there's so many different things that account for energy expenditure. Like thermic effect of food, like your resting metabolic rate, like your non-exercise activity, etc. All right, and you can break these down to further categories if you like. Fat intake. Let's talk more about fat, dietary fat. So reasons why we ought to have some fat in the diet, dietary fat. And please do not think that if you eat dietary fat, you're just going to get fat. You need some fat for function of the body, for your health. And I will remind you, actually, I'm not reminding you because I don't think I've told you this. But maybe you've heard this before, or maybe you've done the challenge before and I've said this. Fat is an organ. Fat is an organ. It plays a role in various actions in the human body. It releases different hormones. It communicates with the gut and other organs. It acts as more than just a tissue unto its own that has no function. Okay, well, you may say, yes, it does. It provides insulation. Okay, but I'm talking about functioning as an organ. It interacts with the body, and it has functions in terms of regulating different things. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the future, and maybe I'll touch upon it now. So more reasons that you want dietary fat in your diet. It's a modulator of sugar, essentially. That is, it slows down the release of sugar, and this is really important for prevention of type 2 diabetes, for the overall health of your pancreas, for perhaps to some degree the mitigation of fat gain, for energy, for the feelings of energy. So for example, if we have more carbohydrates in the bloodstream, we're going to get a higher production. In theory, we should get a higher production of serotonin, which is going to make you feel sleepier. If you get a more even keel amount of sugar into the bloodstream, you're not going to get the same kind of serotonin release. You're also not going to get a spike in blood sugar and then a downfall in blood sugar, etc. Okay, so you get more stable, better stabilization of sugar. Number 5, fat-soluble vitamins. We need this for the synthesis, for the digestion, for the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, and K. These are all super important. You need fat for proper absorption of these vitamins. Number 5, dopamine and acetylcholine production. Okay, again, these are neurotransmitters that essentially are going to make you feel more alert, going to help you function more optimally. Number 7, and this is really just a side note here, they have a 2 to 3% thermic effect. Not much of a thermic effect, but that is their thermic effect. That is, it takes the least amount of energy to digest these macronutrients. You know, one thing I just want to say too about the regulation of sugar, and I'll make this a separate topic, but I'm going to actually make note of it. I don't know if I must talk about this at some point in the future. I'll have to look through my notes, but I'll just say it right now. The more muscle mass you have, the greater reservoir you have for sugar storage. The more muscle mass you have, you can think of it just as, this is a very simplistic, and there's a lot more I can say on this, and I'll talk about it in the future, as I mentioned, but you can look at this as you have a much greater reservoir for sugar storage. You have a much better system for managing sugar. And also, if you're building lean muscle tissue, you can think of it as more doorways inviting sugar into the muscle. And this is much better for your health. This has an influence on various metabolic markers in the human body. All right. So having muscle tissue is not just about, I'm going to be strong and I'm going to have good bone mass and I'm going to look good. No, there is some very important health factors involved with muscle mass. Okay, message of the day. What is my message of the day on this day 13? I like this one a lot. Please listen. Every meal is a short-term investment in how you feel, a mid-term investment in how you look, and a long-term investment in your freedom from disease. Listen up once again. Every meal is a short-term investment in how you feel, a mid-term investment in how you look, and a long-term investment in your freedom from disease, like cancer and heart disease and type 2 diabetes. All of these, and there's others, neurological disease, all of these diseases that are sitting very high up in the hierarchy in terms of their predominance in society, at least a lot in Western society. Well, probably all around the world at this point in time. These are the things that we should really be concerned with because the rates of these diseases are going up astronomically. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. Just remember, every meal is a short-term investment in how you feel, a mid-term investment in how you look, long-term investment, most importantly, a long-term investment in your freedom from disease. I cannot overstate this. In your freedom from disease. Think about that, okay? There's more I want to say, but I'm going to stop myself. Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, for the love of God, give some gratitude, and I will talk to you all very soon. See ya.